Hello and welcome back, everybody. Today is another wonderful day with this new session that Michael has put together for us on the conspiracy, the nightmare on Elm Street. Freddie is back again, huh, Michael?
Brett, hi and hi dear listeners. That will be the last session for quite a bit of time because I have to prepare some other so-called behind the curtains sessions, and I really have to have some time off of that evil subject here on the assassination on Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, that will be. It's really an evil one. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, that will be the last part of that nightmare on Elm Street. Where it comes down to the conclusions I've drawn to put the finger to the real assassin, which only, in my humble opinion, can be Jackie Kennedy. And so let's go for a ride until we go to the Behind the Curtain series about the Kennedy assassinations. And I think that will be a heck of a time when we are going down that road that I don't think that many people have started to go to the path. And of course, all roads lead to Rome. But we will go into this session here just right from the start. So everybody who loves death loves Satan. And I said you have to approach the entire subject from a common sense point of from your common sense actually, and not from everything that the media is pointing out. So you have to look about the things that are really taking place and not what the media is telling you, that Kennedy was struck by several bullets, and of course you will find several bullets and several corpses, but it's just a mess when it comes down all the corpse and autopsy. It's a mess, and we will start with the autopsy from Mr. Kennedy, and it's really a subject which is it's so time consuming. So let me present you a short kind of a summary here. So Lee Harvey Oswald was just a patsy, so don't let anybody fool you into believing that he was an active part playing in that conspiracy. He was meant to be the lone nut. He was a created persona, and he disappeared later on, so he was just a perfect patsy. And he did not shoot because the Dallas Police Department could not find any trace of powder on his face. So that's I think enough, that even when the Dallas police says, okay, there's nothing to be found, nothing to be seen here, so what's the purpose and all? I'm not saying that the Dallas police, which is of course a hierarchy of Freemasons, got it totally right, but it's just doesn't make any sense to think that Kennedy was struck from behind. So there are no clear evidences in the case of Kennedy because there are no clear pictures and videos. So what's the meaning in that? So if you would like to follow down the path of people, so-called experts, then you will be lost also. You will be lost because everybody is pointing to a wound in the back of the head of Kennedy. But, and it's an extreme but, is that what you see? Or is that what you are told? So don't trust anybody. People sometimes are changing even their minds. So first of all, Buddy Waters been used to claim that he found a bullet, and later on he said, oh no, that's not a bullet, that's a part of the skull. So sorry, but if you can't get your facts straight, how to believe anybody when they claim, oh no, it was not a bullet, it's a part of the head. You see, what's the sense? It's pathetic.
Yep.
It's really pathetic. So, what's going on? And I say everybody is part of a script on the assassination of Kennedy. They can't afford that anybody would tell the truth, and can't afford that the truth would be out in the open, because if you kill an American president, then everything must be quite 100% going according to the script, which it didn't, but at least they tried. So I thought about, is there any chance of evidence that Jackie Kennedy has been killing her husband. And I found it. Because I said, okay, I have to concentrate on finding a wound on the left side of his face, so a wound on the left temporal area. I got some Dr. Robert McClelland, assistant professor of surgery, affiliated with the Parkland Hospital, in a report, and he says that there was a wound on the left temporal area. Okay, how can there be a wound on the left temporal area? If everybody is claiming that he had the back of his head, the right part of his head would be affected. So that's really interesting. So let's look it up. A Catholic priest who administers last rite to president was interviewed in 1963, and he said that JFK had a terrible wound over his left eye, according to the book of Best Evidence and Who's Who in the JFK Assassination. Yeah, so left side. Once again, next time, high treason, page 460. The first doctor to see what he said was a bullet entry wound to the left temple was Dr. Leto. And Dr. Leto, son, got in touch to the researcher Vince Palamara, according to him, and he said, call me and I give you info. My father needs to keep his mouth quiet. Yeah, so left temple. So that's the next one. Then, supposedly, Mr. Hugh Higgins or Hugh Howell, Marine undercover CIA agent, if that is correct, says that in Breaking the Silence, I distinctly saw an entry wound in the left temple. So there are certain people who are claiming that is coming of a wound, an entrance wound from the left side. Yeah. So Dr. Robert McCann, once again, claiming the cause of death was due to a massive head and brain injury from a gunshot wound of the left temple. Not behind, not right, but left temple, from the left side. Yeah. Later on he changed it to the right side, or the right temple. And maybe the right temple is the right temple, if you know the play of words that I'm trying to use here. Yeah, so what a mess. What a mess. Yeah. So there are really sources about that the origin of Kennedy's head wound is coming from the left. Yeah. Interesting enough that certain Mr. McClelland says or points the finger to the head on the right side. Very interesting that people can change their minds. Yeah, and Mr. Cladden says that bullet came from the grassy knoll. Sure, it must have been then the right side if that had to come from the grassy knoll. But that is just also another doctrine. That is not the truth. It's not the truth. And I will show you why I came to the conclusion. Yeah, so there are many people claiming that it's coming from the left side of the head, but you have to research that. And you won't find it on the mass mainstream media or on Google or what else. It's a real problem with it, because if you compare that then to other pictures, your mainstream theory about shot from behind or shot from the grassy knoll won't fit. Mr. Charles A. Crenshaw was just one of the trauma room physicians who fought vainly to keep the president alive. In the chaotic scene, he especially noticed Clint Hill waving his revolver like a madman. He commented the president was getting more protection when he was dead than when he was alive. Yeah, and that was supposed to be, I say. So Mr. Charles Crenshaw says that Clint Hill was a Secret Service agent who had pushed Jackie back into her seat, was rambling around the room in a wild-eyed, disoriented fashion, waving a .38 caliber pistol. He had failed to do his job, which was to protect the President of the United States. That's not correct, because he only was there to protect the First Lady. So that is coming from that book, Crenshaw, Trauma Room Part 1. Then when he mentioned here rambling around the room in a wild-eyed, disorientated fashion, waving a .38 caliber pistol. Yeah? Maybe you do that also to announce that you are in control of the situation when you are waving a pistol in a hospital, Brett.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that article coming here from the website Reformation.org says the bravest of the brave was Dr. McClelland, who wrote in his report that the president died from a massive gunshot wound to the left temple. Here his report as filed in a Warren Commission hearings, and I have a hard time finding that report because I have not found it yet. Maybe I will find it in the future, but it's really hard to find. I have not succeeded yet, but he's not the only one. He says, the cause of death was due to a massive head and brain injury from a gunshot wound of the left temple. There was monumental loss of blood after external cardiac massage failure and EKG activity was gone. From that book, Trauma Room 1, from Dr. Crenshaw, he says Dr. Cleland was at his side. So he confirms that Cleland and he himself, they have examined the president. Yeah? Crenshaw said that I had a terrible fear that I would be the only resident doctor in the room. I didn't know that. Bob or Robert had similar thought, fearing that he would be the only staff doctor here, because you were then being responsible for saving the president or not saving the president. I would not like to exchange position with that guys or with that doctors. Okay, so let's move on. This Robert Nelson McClelland, he worked unsuccessfully to save the life of American President Kennedy after he was fatally shot. Yeah, that's why he was fatally shot, so he could not save the life. Yeah? And 2 days later, the life of Kennedy's assassin Lee Harvey Oswald. I found that very interesting. Let's go into that kind of doctor. McClelland was the only member of Kennedy's surgical team who supported the idea that Kennedy has been shot from the front, with the idea that there was a second gunman. 2 days later, he saw the news that Kennedy's assassin Lee Harvey Oswald, or supposed to be assassin, had been shot. He immediately went back to the hospital. McClelland preserved his bloodstained shirt from attempting to save President Kennedy for the rest of his life. Okay, so he was been seen as the lone dissenting voice. So these are interviews from the Warren Commission with Mr. Robert McClelland. Yeah, he says, or he has been asked, could you approximate for me the total number of gunshot wounds which you have had an opportunity to observe? And the answer of Dr. McClelland was, quote unquote, I would estimate that it would be in excess of 200. So you can assume that at the point of Mr. Kennedy's Trauma Room 1 appearance, that doctor has some kind of experience, Brett, in excess of 200 gunshot wounds. Please keep that in mind. So the other stuff is not that quite interesting. Yeah. He said the right portion of the skull had been extremely blasted, which was really interesting because that's not the thing that you see on pictures and videos. We will go into that quite later. So I'm looking only for the summary. I don't want you to read everything. He's been asked whether or not it was a wound of entrance or a wound of exit, or how would you characterize it in your words? And the answer of Mr. Dr. McClelland is as follows. I would say it would be equally consistent with either type wound, either an entrance or an exit type wound. It would be quite difficult to say impossible. Haven't we learned, Brad, that he was experienced doctor with having seen more than 200 gunshot wounds? And then, Brett, he can't say if it is an entrance or an exit type wound. I find that very hard to believe.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, you have really... I'm trying to save you time, because if you really read everything, you will be busy with, I think, years. Yeah. Dr. McClelland says, where you would expect to see this really great hole that is left behind would be, for instance, from a very high velocity missile fired at close range with a heavy caliber bullet, such as a 45 pistol fired at close range, which would make a small entrance hole in relativity, and particularly if it entered some portion of the anatomy, such as the head, where there was a sudden change in density from the brain to the skull cavity as it entered. Yeah, so he's making the reference that like a 45 pistol fired at close range. He did not say that it was the weapon who was causing that wound, but I found that remark very interesting. 45 pistol, okay. Not gunshot wound, but 45 pistol. Heavy caliber bullet. Because I can't have a hard time, Brett, imagining that massive head wound of Kennedy was the result of a small caliber.
Right.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. So that's meet Mr. McClelland, who's pointing at you like all the other doctors said that the back part of the right head of Kennedy was having massive failure and a massive hole in it. 5-inch in diameter, he says in that video here. Okay. What other things are there? Well, in Parkland. They have made X-rays, supposedly, from that skull, and you see that has been shattered here, so there's just a part of the skull which is not been connected to the other parts. And now comes a big but. Yeah, because it only makes sense, the massive head wound on the right side only makes sense if there would be a shot from the grassy knoll from the right side, huh? But that can't be, because that's not what all the pictures and movies are showing you. So who tells the truth? Yeah? 17 centimeters. And you know that they have switched the corpses. Yeah, so is that Kennedy corpse or is that Tippit corpse? J.D. Tippit, the Dallas policeman. Yeah? Which head is it? And is it before? At Parkland? Is it during the trip on the plane, where then the bodies have been switched? Or is it in the Bethesda hospital complex in Maryland? Huh? I would not take any guess. Yeah, because it's meant to confuse people. Yeah? Also, the claim that Mrs. Kennedy was trying to escape from the limousine does not make any sense when the driver is accelerating. Yeah, he can't accelerate in the one direction and shoot behind at the same time. Even Mr. Greer is not able to do so. But, and it's a big but, how is she supposed to know that there are parts of his skull? So when the official theory claims that the back of the head is missing and then it can be found on the trunk. Yeah, because she's not picking up anything. Yeah, so that is just a bold claim which has no substance in my humble opinion. Especially if you... Please, don't believe any special agent like Clint Hill, because these people are meant to keep secrets. He says Mrs. Kennedy had jumped up from the seat and was, it appeared to me, reaching for something coming off the right rear bumper of the car, the right rear tail. Yeah, and maybe people have really a sense in believing that she was trying to recover a piece of the skull from her husband. Yeah. So I think that also he's lying, Mr. Clint Hill. Yeah. And Governor Connolly says, according to the Warren Commission testimony, I heard her say sometimes, I've got his brains in my hand. Aha. Yeah, well. Yeah, you see, all the world's a stage, and all these people are acting together. So you can't believe a Connolly, you can't believe a Jackie Kennedy, you can't believe a Clint Hill, can't believe anybody. And Connolly says, okay, then later I lost consciousness and I didn't regain consciousness until we got to the hospital. That's very convenient. Yeah. Dr. Marion Jenkins says he has been handed over a large chunk of President Kennedy's brains by the First Lady. Yeah, so, but that does not mean that she has picked it up on the trunk. Yeah, so he says, I noticed that her hands were cupped in front of her as if she were cradling something. As she passed by, she nudged me with an elbow and handed me what she had been nursing in her hands, a large chunk of her husband's brain tissues. Well, that she could have picked up from the back seat, but not necessarily from the trunk. Yeah? Because how did she know that there was some piece of the skull on the trunk? Yeah, because when you really look to the best available pictures here on that shitty Zapruder movie, you see that she's only focusing him, but not the trunk. So how she is supposed to know that there is some thing of the back head flying onto the trunk? Because she can't see it. And if you can't see anything flying away, then you won't get to pick it up, won't you? So if she's focused on him and his wounds, yeah, so she cannot notice if there would be some part of his brains, back, skull, bones, whatever, tissue flying back on the trunk. And you can't see anything on the trunk also. Yeah, so that is all BS. It's all BS. It's fake and it's BS. Yeah, something she could not have seen until well after the explosion. But even then, you see that here Kennedy has been struck fatally, and she's just focusing on him, but not on the trunk and not on anything on his back of his head. My. Yeah? Everybody is pointing the finger to the right side of the temple, even Abraham Zapruder, and you can really say that he was in it and he was part of the assassination and he witnessed it with his own eyes, or at least with the eyes of his camera, or any other part or any other guy or girl who was then having the camera. Even that is not quite sure. So everybody is focusing on the right side to get the smoke away from Mrs. Kennedy, I suppose. That's why also people claim, yeah, sure, the fatal shot came from the grassy knoll. It struck Kennedy in the right temple. Therefore, his back of the head was flying onto the trunk, which has been picked up by Mrs. Kennedy. And then a spray of brain matter, skull, and what else has been flying onto the police car, so that Bobby Hargis said that he thought he was being struck himself. And I know also that Daryl is supporting that. And sorry, I'm not supporting that. In my humble meaning, in my humble research, I say that all these people are in it. It is just a script. Everybody is told to do according to the script that is told to say something according to the script, Brett.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So if these people were affected by blood and matter or tissue or what else, yeah, that really would mean that the shot must have been coming from the front and from a certain angle. So either from the grassy knoll or most likely also from the storm drainer. Yeah, that is just to support the theory for the lay people who are just not going into research hours and months and years even. Yeah, so I thought at first I might have been hit. But, and it's a big but, yeah, it's all Secret Service and it's all Freemason organized, the Dallas police. Yeah, so the entire infrastructure in Dallas is lying for the goal of hiding the real truth of the assassination. How it had been made and who's behind it. So, once again, back to the script of the killer queen, Jackie Kennedy. Clint Hill testifies to the Warren Commission. The right portion of JFK's head was missing on arrival at Parkland Hospital. He says bone fragments exploded from the back of the president's head. Unfortunately for Clint, the Zapruder film clearly shows bone fragments exploding from the other side of the president's head from around the upper front right corner. He is lying. As well as all the other peoples are lying. You see, they are all involved in a high government staged setup. And nobody wants to lose his job or even his life. Because I think that everybody knows what's at stake here if they would tell the real truth or another story. There are several people missing and had been killed after the assassination of Kennedy. So, that means that is an argumentum ad populum or argumentum ad verecundiam, which means it's an argument for the majority of people. Yeah, of course, all the experts are saying that it's the back of the head missing. As well as not only the majority of people, but the majority of so-called experts. Isn't that the same situation which is 2022 occurring here, that we have all the government acknowledged experts who are all telling the same story, and therefore it must be true, huh? That's not the truth here. The truth is in the Bible. Yeah, but it's not the truth. That he just arguments that the majority of people say, "You're sure it was the back of the head missing?" Yeah, maybe they have seen a corpse where the back of the head was missing, but that can have been several causes. Yeah, maybe the switch of the body.
Michael, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Where does this phrase come from? Argumentum ad populum.
Populum. Populus means the majority of people from Rome.
This is Latin, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Where did you get that?
Oh, I made a German series about the influence of television in general. And that's an argument of people who don't have any arguments, but they're just claiming that, okay, it must be true because the majority of people, they really believe it has to be so, that way. So that is argumentum ad populum. You see that in your Wikipedia. In argumentation theory, Latin for appeal to the people, it's a fallacious argument which is based on claiming a truth or affirming...
Oh, sophistry.
Yeah.
Oh, where have we seen that before, Michael?
Yeah.
It's the oldest trick in the book, isn't it?
Yeah, all the scribes and Pharisees, they are according to the Bible, they say that Jesus Christ was heretic.
Yeah. So whenever you see, this is really good research, Michael. Whenever you see the root being a Latin root, you know it's Antichrist, don't you?
Mm. Yeah, it's a so-called dead language.
Yeah. Well, no one uses it, right?
Yeah, a majority of people using it, but it's only people from the left side, so to speak. So the doctors, the lawyers, and
well, it's all
church
in the
people.
law books, right? I mean, this is all part of ancient Roman law.
Yeah,
that's what Latin is. It's ancient Roman language. 2,000 plus years old, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also an argumentum ad verecundiam, which means an argument from authority. It's a form of a defeasible argument in which a claimed authority support is used as evidence for an argument's conclusion. It is well known as a fallacy, though it is used in a cogent form where all sides of a discussion agree on the reliability of an authority in a given context.
Yeah, that's a cognate form, like cognitive dissonance.
Dissonance,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so X is an expert on subject Y. X claims A, therefore A is probably true, because he's an expert. Yeah? In the medieval period, the argument from authority was considered by many the weakest form of argument, such as in the works of Saint Thomas Aquinas. In his Summa Theologica, he wrote, citing Boethius as well, that to argue from authority is the weakest kind of proof. Yeah, but that's what the governments are constantly doing.
Yeah. They are.
Yeah, so you see that these are Latin sophistry arguments. And
well,
so
the
don't
Bible does tell us that the nations are drunk, Michael.
Yeah, so don't come up with the thing that you really fall for all of that, because if you fall for that, you have really a problem with your common sense. And common sense is what God has given you if you are a reborn Christ. And the Holy Spirit is supporting you, leading you into the truth. So this is just mainstream here. And I know that these people were busy with Kennedy. It was Crenshaw and McClellan. They were busy with Kennedy. I know that. But that does not mean that they tell you the truth. Maybe they don't tell you the truth because of fear for their job. Maybe they don't tell you the truth because of fear of something could be happening to them personally. Yeah, maybe they got pressure and you don't know what.
Maybe all the above.
Maybe all the above, yeah. Yeah, so that's really the case. You see that everything has been there to distract you from Jackie Kennedy as the assassination woman. Yeah? So that's it here. Don't question authority, because if you have all the majority of doctors and experts and ballistics and who else, yeah, you have everybody against you. Yeah, do not question authority. That, of course, comes from the movie They Live, but that's the same appearing and coming out of nowhere from 2019 and so forth.
Yeah, it's like saying, do not question ritual.
You don't question the government. Yeah, we know what's best for you. Yeah, you don't question
Don't
anything.
question our ritual here. This is just something we do to clean the house up. You're not supposed to know anything, so back off.
Yeah. So in Trauma Room 1, in that book from Charles Crenshaw, who was the one supposedly responsible for the treatment of the president, with a foreword of Oliver Stone, who was Jesuit coadjutor, it's been said here on page 83. A distraught Malcolm Kilduff, White House press secretary, holds a press conference at Parkland Hospital. He announced the time of the president's death at 1 o'clock and says that, quote, he died of a gunshot wound in the brain. When asked by a newsman to elaborate on the cause of death, Kilduff points to the right temple and replies, Dr. Berkeley told me it's a simple matter of a bullet right through the head. And that is that famous picture. And now you have to use your common sense. Of course, he's in line with all the doctors and all the people who are claiming, yeah, the shot came from right side and hit the president right in the head. And so the back of the head was being blown out by the impact of the bullet. Yeah? And a few weeks before, I asked Brett, I said that just from intuition, please tell me what that gesture actually means. And he came up with this strange meaning of use your brain, idiot. And so they're playing tricks on you. They are just really having a good time behind the curtains into believing you that he actually meant the path of the bullet. But actually what I think his purpose is that they wanted to have somebody to make just a little bit fun of the audience, yeah, so that they really think that the audience is absolutely too blind and too dumb to see. Because once again, that Zapruder movie was not officially publicly known several years after the assassination took place. Yeah, so nobody could actually see anything from or verify anything from a movie or from a picture or what else. Yeah, so I think that his purpose was just to fool people. And now we are using our brains. Because we are not idiots. Because the official government theory cannot fit. Because if there was a shot from behind, then why should it be that the right frontal part or the right part of this brain should be exploding, and not the frontal part but the middle part? That makes not any sense. And then you have drawings from several people, also from Mr. McClellan, who says that yeah, that's the back of the head. 4 by 5 inch here, exit. Yeah, maybe he's got another, maybe they have occurred another wound on Kennedy's back in the between, I don't know. Or it's just another corpse, I don't know. And I don't care, because it's not consistent to the things that we are seeing. Yeah, so everybody is here just playing a part of a script. Also Bobby Hages, who's supposedly the one who was looking into the storm drainer here, or storm sewer. Yeah, where supposedly a shot came to support the theory of the shot coming from the front. Yeah, so the shot from the back is the official Warren Commission theory. The shot from the front is then the official accepted conspiracy theory. But the truth is just quite another thing, because the truth is that bullet came from the left side, and not from the front, and not from the right. It came from the side. So they create one official BS Warren Commission theory and several BS conspiracy theories, but you won't get the truth until you start to do your own research. Yeah? I don't say that there was not coming any shot out of that, but surely not the shot who killed Mr. Kennedy in the first place. We don't know what kind of a shot there came. And I can't support anything where the throat wound of Kennedy came, because also Mr. Tippit had a front wound or throat wound. So it's not me. You see, you can't solve the riddle, but you can solve the riddle. What happened to Kennedy? Yeah. So only if there was a shot from the grassy knoll or the storm sewer could be affected Hages and Martin, the two motorbike cops. But even then, you see that would not be in line with the left temple. So these are all staged events. Because who were there to protect the president anyway? So if they do not support the president, they're part of a conspiracy not to protect the president in the fatal shooting. That's it. Not more to say here, because they are all in it. Nobody is protecting the president. Nobody. So it's all fake. So Mr. Robert McClelland, once again, he says, the back half of the right cerebral was gone, half right of his cerebellum was gone. He had absolutely fatal wounds. And I said, wait a minute, Robert McClelland? Oh, so he's a Scottish man, How convenient. Weren't there any Scots busy in the Didi Plaza, for example, for the anniversary of Kennedy's death from the Scottish Rite? I said, oh, that is very interesting. And I looked it up and I said, what's he telling? The back half of the right cerebral was gone, half right was gone. You see, Brett, I have a hard time seeing that in Zapruder frame 316 and also in the Moorman picture that the back of the head of Kennedy was missing.
Right.
So that's what I say with common sense, so everybody is telling you something that is in absolutely contradiction to the things that you see as a picture and as a video. So how come? How come? So who do you believe? And I say I would rather believe, in this time, that's a Zapruder movie. Because it would be very hard to fake the entire head of Kennedy for all the 100 frames or so. And also to be according to fake all the movies of the stills pictures of Kennedy. And you know that the Zapruder film is not the only movie. So even if you go to that famous picture here, somebody will claim and said, okay, you can really see that there is the head of Kennedy exploding and there's some debris in the air. I have a hard problem with that, Brett, because then please explain what is this, what is that, what is that, what is that, what is that.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So that could also be a form of a forgery here, that somebody has been just altering that picture.
Right.
Especially when you know that there are some other pictures similar to that version here without that artifacts here. So maybe just somebody was putting a smiley up on here. You can't prove it by some pictures. Also, if you go to the Zapruder movie 225 here, for example, when Kennedy was reaching out for his throat, you can also argue, these are just artifacts from the movie. But if there are artifacts from the movie, maybe that's all artifacts from the picture. And if there are not artifacts here, if you say that, that is part of the skull which is blown away from Kennedy, then you have to say that, and these black dots here, that's a swarm of bees or what? So what I say is that the quality of pictures and movies are so decent that you can't make it out. But if I would have to take a guess on it, I would say that in that picture here, it looks more that the frontal area of Kennedy's head is gone or damaged or what else. Or something is very strange here, but it's surely not the back of the head. So what they are telling us is, he says, I did operate the president and Oswald, and Connolly had a chest wound and wrist. The magic bullet is unlikely, but he had wounds in his chest, wrist and thigh. That's what I did. And I can't believe him anymore. Because a man who has been hit in the wrist with his bullet can't keep his head in his hand. And so far, I suppose, I'm sorry to say that, I suppose that he is in on the, what to say, the forgery. Yeah, sorry. If he says that Connolly had a chest wound and wrist and thigh, yeah, sorry, and it's not from a magic bullet, okay. But if he insists on Connolly having a wound, and I know that there are X-rays of his wound, I have a hard time because then it can't be, because he cannot keep on having his head in his hand, and also it can't be that it has been coming from that pristine bullet. Yeah, so I'm sorry, but he's out of my reliability research. Yeah, he's in. He's an insider. I don't know what he is. Maybe he's. Yeah, you will see. Yeah, yeah, because that's when they have agreed on shaking their hands in that documentary. And I can't say that 100%, but that could be a Freemason handshake of the master's grip. But I find it very awkward to end an interview with a handshake. That's not common. Yeah, but when he says, okay, that Connolly has a wrist wound, then he's out of anything that I would say it's correct. Yeah, I hardly doubt. And I would be in for an autopsy on the remains of Governor Connolly. And if I would have to take a guess, I'd say that he has no wrist wound. Because that's inconsistent with the Zapruder movie also. That means that these are just fake wounds to create the imagination that there was a shooting from all sides. Yeah, so I can't prove that if he is a Freemason or not. I know that he has a Scottish name, and I suppose that there is something absolutely fishy taking and going on in Parkland Hospital, and so that nobody wants to dare question the official narrative. Yeah, because what you see in the Zapruder movie is clearly the frontal area of Kennedy's head exploding, and the trace of a bullet or the trace of matter, of brain matter here, vertical, up in the air here. Yeah, so not the shot coming from the front, not the shot coming from the right, but a shot coming from top, from bottom to top, so up high in the air. Yeah, so that can only be created either by Mrs. Kennedy or something that has been installed here in the car. So that means that it is the frontal part of the head and not the back part of the head. Yeah, so everybody's lying. Everybody's clearly simply lying. You see here the massive head wound. Yeah, everybody is lying to us. Yeah. So the shot most likely went on to be below the left ear, and then it traveled through the head, and maybe also a little bit more up in the air, and so that you see the massive head wound here. And so the bullet here has that flight path. Yeah, so that means that the bullet must be landing somewhere here, maybe grassy knoll or parking lot behind, yeah, or even over the railway station lines. Yeah, but that's where the bullet somewhere must have been, and most likely has been picked up and been getting rid of. Yeah? So if it was been made with a handbag or been made with the lamp shop doll, I don't care. Yeah, because clearly you see the frontal area, and so therefore that is the supposed flight path of the bullet. Not from the front and not from the back, but from the side. Yeah, and so that is yeah, there you see the supposed murder of John F. Kennedy, which has been getting rid of everything because the bullet cannot be found, because it was the FBI's task to get rid of every evidence, or to keep the evidence to then blackmail everybody who was been a part of this assassination bread. Yeah, so that means actually that nobody could say anything because the bullet must be somewhere, and I think that is in the deepest archives of J. Edgar Hoover. And now just try to imagine what kind of direction JFK is looking less than 1 second before the fatal shot. Can you see something, Brett?
He's definitely looking down, if you were to ask me.
Yeah, but he's not looking to his wife.
No,
No.
straight in front of.
No, but now imagine, just use your common sense as I try. Yeah, so that means that can you think you grasp for air and you can't do anything and you can't speak? Yeah, what do you do to get the people's attention to your problem, to your emergency situation? I think usually you would at least look somebody in the eye, but he doesn't. He's just keeping just his eyes on as if he can't move his head.
I think what you said earlier, Michael, that he was basically paralyzed.
Yeah, that's my estimation, yeah.
Who knows how, but he was paralyzed.
Yeah, otherwise you would at least try to make yourself visible and to get the attention of your wife.
Well, Michael, the more I think about it, the more we've researched this and looked into this, the more I think that car was just completely set up to do what it did. Mm-hmm. And Jackie was just there to guide him into the proper position, and everything was taken care of automatically. That's the only thing I can think of. But who am I?
What you are trying to say is the opinion of Mr. Dr. Peter Beater. He had made some research. Of course, he made the not correct assumption that there are Rockefellers behind it. But he says that murder weapon, he says, was, of course, hidden mounted inside the seat upholstery in front of the president. That was his estimation.
And yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
It's hard to see because you can't see anything, because if you look the upholstery when the car was empty, you don't see any hole.
And just think about it. They could have put a syringe in the back seat, and just poked him right at the right second, and choop, he's out.
That's the second best method, of course, if Jackie Kennedy would fail. But of course, she's in it. Yeah, but who really pulled the trigger?
She may not have been the one that pulled the trigger, but she positioned him, didn't she?
Yeah. I go according. Yes, of course. These are the two things which are left behind and possibilities. Yeah, these are the only two possibilities. Either Jackie Kennedy shot him, or Jackie Kennedy put him into the position of a shot. And I think that the latter one is the more dangerous one also for Jackie Kennedy. So therefore, I say that there is a better chance that she did it, but of course that's a valid theory, because that car was prepared. Sure, you remember that J. Edgar Hoover, FBI guy, Hoover against the Kennedys, who has put electronic surveillance on them and was spying on them. Yeah, so he knew exactly what to do, and I think that car had incorporated several audio and video recorders for that incident. Yeah, for that famous incident, the killing of American president in high definition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he says, Dr. Peter Beater says, what is known as a special charge in a special mounting. A shaped charge is a specifically configured explosive device, which essentially produces a focused explosion that is an explosion. Yeah, so he was killed by a device, or he was killed in an explosion. That was not a real, or that was not a normal shot, of course. It was a real explosion happening. Yeah, maybe it was a sort of shotgun hit in the seat upholstery ahead of him. Yeah, and then he draws the wrong conclusion to Governor Connolly, but that he did not do 50 sessions about that, of course. Yeah, of course the car has been destroyed quickly afterwards, sure, because the car would reveal all the secrets. Yeah, and so therefore not to trace anything back, the brains of Kennedy had been getting rid of, because then you would find traces of of explosive maybe, or in some else poison and all the stuff, huh? Yeah. Yeah, and so the question is that if Mrs. Kennedy put the trigger, or she just pulled the trigger of the death device, nobody knows because the car is not there. Yeah, but the car, of course, had several things equipped: remote control, surveillance, radio operators, cameras, and all the like. Yeah. And so also the valid theory is that the bullet of Jackie, or the bullet of the car, contained white phosphorus that made JFK's head burned very high, and to create that effect. Yeah, that effect. So everything's possible there. So I think it's not important if he was being killed by the handbag, killed by the lamp shop, or killed by an electronic device. But he was killed. And there were other people who were killed nearly the same way. Because Mary Pinchot Meyer, the wife of a CIA agent who allegedly had an affair with the president, also was shot on the left side of the head. And also Gary Underhill, who was shot on the left side of the head while he was in bed. Yeah, so that is very interesting. All the people had something to do with JFK, and they were also shot from the left. Yeah, so I don't want to go into Gary Underhill, but you can't imagine what you see. You can, of course, it was been seen as a suicide. Yeah, although he was right-handed, he killed himself on the left side. Sure. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Gunshot wound in the head and brain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see, it's Kennedy. It's unbelievable. And it's not only these people here. General Lansdale, who has been accused by James Fetzer as the mastermind behind it. I highly doubt that. He was just a general, yeah? But there are much, much more elaborate and smarter people on top of the hierarchy than a US Air Force general. Yeah, and also I don't believe that anything from the storm sewer had made the fatal impact on Kennedy, because really, if you would like to get rid of the American president, you really hire a young guy, a young lad, huh? Yeah, I absolutely don't believe it. Also, the next hint is that it was just a setup, because he was just working at Mercury car dealership. At Mercury, we had in the beginning of the assassination of Kennedy, when the Mercury car opened his back doors and made most likely the distraction shoots. And Mercury, you have also with that James Files guy, who claims he had to made the fatal shots to Kennedy with a special Mercury bullet. And now you got that Jack Lawrence, who worked as a Mercury dealership, and Mercury being Hermes, or being the trickster god. So that everything is supporting here, or that's been around this Mercury thing, Mercury car, Mercury bullet, and that guy working in the Mercury car facility. I think they're all distractions. There's just all tricks, and that's why they use that Mercury. That's just my assumption here on when it comes down to symbolism. Huh? Then you have to look up Jack Lawrence Mercury. Yeah, look it up. Mercury you find in James Files, and also Mercury car on the Elm Street. Yeah, you have 3 times Mercury. What a coincidence. Okay, so everybody's in on it. So question is, who invited JFK to Dallas? It's very easy. Because it was Mr. Connolly. The then governor of Texas. He invited JFK to Dallas. So he wants to have JFK in Dallas. So that was his task. And once again, I don't trust that man. He says, in an interview, John Connolly on JFK assassination from 1991, he says, quote, "I heard another shot." So not the first shot, but I heard another shot about that loud, and my eyes were open. Yeah, and when he says that loud, he described as loud, which would suggest that it was not coming from a distance. Yeah, you know what he did when he said that loud? He was just clapping in his hands. He said, "I heard another shot about that loud." Why, Brett? It's very easy.
Close proximity.
Yeah, yeah. He was just coming from few inches or 2 feet or 3 feet away. That's why he said that loud. Yeah. So that means that it can't have happened from the Texas Schoolbook Depositorium or the grassy knoll or the storm sewer, the storm drain.
Right.
It can only happen from inside the car. And that does not mean there are 2 shooters now. Or
Right.
crossfire. That just means that the fatal shot really came from inside the car. Yeah, about that loud. About that loud. About that loud. Yeah, so they don't tell you the truth, but sometimes just slipping out of their tongue. About that loud, if you really won't like to believe them. But you see, it has to come from the car. It has to come from close range to be absolutely certain. Yeah, but he does not prove that there were 2 shooters. That's the wrong assumption. Yeah, that loud, it suggested that it was closer than the first sounds he heard. Yeah. Yeah. He knew that the president was fatally hit. And Mrs. Kennedy says, "I've got his brains in my hand." Yeah. So all scripted. He says, conspiracy, I don't know, I was there, but the Warren Commission, I think, did a good job. Yeah, sure. In covering everything up. He says, Brett,
Exactly.
I think they probably overlooked. Yeah, probably overlooked a bit. Yeah, probably overlooked a bit.
A little admission in there, huh?
Yeah, yeah. He says, I'm not taking part in any kind of a cover-up. I don't believe that. I don't believe it at all. So that's not a cover-up. Because, yeah, sure, he can't believe it because he's part in it. He's part of it, of the cover-up. He's part of the assassination. Yeah, and he was a team of the Lyndon B. Johnson when Lyndon B. Johnson had that election fraud. John Connolly, Johnson's campaign manager, sent a telegram that says, "Unless miracle happens, looks, we're in it." Yeah, so one of the best friends of Lyndon B. Johnson was riding in front of Kennedy. And I suppose that there are several things going on as a signal for Mrs. Kennedy. First of all, you got the Umbrella Man, where I said it's been visible quite before the time when Kennedy was grasping for air here. Not speaking of a shot. That shot, if that was a real shot, occurred to him maybe later, but not there. Yeah, because there is absolutely no... you see that it can't be, because if the second one is a magic bullet and goes through both people, then why does not the first bullet goes through Mr. Kennedy and then moves into Mr. Connelly or somebody else, huh? That's just inconsistent. So that's the first part. I said that the black umbrella means also the death of fertility, or maybe also the death of the child, but can also have several other meanings. So that's the first thing. And the more precise thing would be when Mrs. Connelly or Mr. Connelly is sitting in front, so at close range at Mrs. Kennedy, and then they can also trigger a certain word when she knows that she has to go into the action of making the president ready for the fatal shot. Yeah, so that's the same with Hitchcock. Yeah, to try to think of the perfect murder. Yeah, dial M for murder. Yeah, so when somebody dials, then the murder will occur. Or when somebody yells in that car and says, "Go, Jackie, go!" Or "Jackie, it's a go," or what else, I don't know. Yeah, or some code word. Yeah, then Jackie is trying to pull the trigger or to pull the device or what else. Yeah, so that is most likely the choice and the task of these people here. And also that would be the number one reason why the driver, Will Greer, is looking backward. Because maybe Greer was also the one who was then saying, Jackie, go. Yeah, because that would be the number one reason why he was looking back. Because it's a silent movie. That means that they can yell as long as they want. You see, you won't hear anything on that particular movie. Yeah, so also the order could have come from Mr. Greer, getting back to make sure that Jackie has a go now. Okay, so that's my estimation here. Yeah, so JFK's injury was at the front, and so that the bullet appears from the right side, and then it exited out of the right frontal part of Kennedy's head, which is clearly visible here. So everybody who says that, yeah, that was the back of the head was missing, is not looking at the right picture here. I don't know. I have a hard time with it, because I have to face upon the things that I can think about with my common sense. My common sense, Brett, tells me that it can only come from down below and from the left side to create that kind of a frontal right head explosion.
Yeah. Right. There you go.
Yeah.
It looks like the side of his face just comes off, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that means that you have the trace of the bullet or of the matter here, and you know it has to be coming down from down below, going up into the air, which means that it only been possible to do so when it comes down from the left side and down from the ear or from the throat area across his face. Yeah, so that's the only possible solution, and there is no one standing behind him or beside him other than Jackie Kennedy. Yeah, so he has no sharpshooter, he is no nothing. Yeah, also not on the Oliver Nix film, and so you see the only choice to hit the president on that way with that path on the 313 is Jackie Kennedy or a device. You can look it on both ways, but she is in on it 100%. And she says that, oh, I don't care who did it because it won't bring my husband back. Oh, yeah, what's about her security and the security of her children, huh? That's a BS comment. And so I said that, oh, maybe we have to look to other things also. I wanted to know what's going on in the United States Billboard songs. And I just saw that 1 week after the Kennedy assassination, it was a #1 hit for the Beatles. I Want to Hold Your Hand. And I said, oh, that's very interesting because Mrs. Kennedy is just holding the hand of Mr. Kennedy here. But that must be a sole coincidence, of course. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the best part to spot is the middle part here of the jump seats to make great pictures. Yeah, so that is here. And also that now you see here the back seat of the presidential limousine, Brett. So if Peter Beta is correct, then there must be some hole in it here, yeah, for example. And also, please just look at that picture here. That is absolutely common sense. Is there any blood on the trunk, Brett?
There might be, but you sure can't tell. Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it. So where's the majority of the blood?
On the seat.
On the seat. So that would count much more for a frontal head wound than for a back head wound.
Yes.
Yeah. So in case that you have a back head wound, then everybody would be smeared here with blood. Yeah. So even that picture is very revealing when you really see that. Oh yeah, the majority of blood, of course, is there where JFK was then.
He just slouched over, right?
Slouched over, yeah. Yeah. So hard to tell if there is a hole in here or a hole in there. can't see it quite clearly, but what you can see is that the blood is on the back seat and not on the trunk. So that means that it is the front of the head exploding and not the back. Yeah, this is sorry, I don't know what they have seen. Maybe they have seen some prepared skull. Yeah, everything is possible here, but it's not the Kennedy wound. It's not the thing that you see on the Zapruder movie. Yeah, so use your brains. Yeah, that's not the thing that you see in that movie. You see the frontal head exploding, not the back of the head. And so, it is just very easy when you know that it's the Roman Catholic Church behind the assassination of Mr. Abraham Lincoln. And then you can assume that if they have succeeded 100 years before, why shouldn't they succeed 100 years later? He says to Charles Chiniquy, if the war is more against the Pope of Rome, his perfidious Jesuits and their blind and bloodthirsty slaves, than against the Americans of the South. Yeah, and so you see that it's very easy when you know that Lincoln was killed at close range in the Ford Theater. So that it's very supposed to be true, the correct interpretation that Kennedy also was being killed at close distance. It was very, very interesting. Yeah. He says, I know the Jesuits never forget nor forsake, but man must not care how and where he dies, provided he dies at a post of honor and duty. Abraham Lincoln in 50 years in the Church of Rome. Yeah. And everything related to the CIA is Syrian military Nile of Malta, and everything related to Lee Harvey Oswald, his cousin, is reported to be a Jesuit priest. You see, you have these Jesuits' involvements everywhere. And the director of CIA in 1963 was Knight of Malta, John McCone. Everybody, you have Knights of Malta. So what JFK actually did is he gotten rid of Alan Dulles, SMOM, and replaced him with John McCone, SMOM. Wow, that's a smart move. Yeah, but on the other hand, you won't get a decent position in the CIA without the ties to the Supreme Military Order of Malta.
Yeah, but Americans don't know that. We're not told anything about these religious orders. You have to be researching this and come across it to really recognize what it means.
Yeah, when they say black is white and white is black, that's the way it is. That's in their spiritual exercises. That is what's quoted in the movie of JFK from Kevin Costner. When he says, hey people, we've got to start thinking like the CIA, black is white and white is black. That was a Jesuit giveaway that the Jesuits produced that movie because they're quoting Ignatius Loyola in that movie from his spiritual exercises. Yeah. And in the book, The Vatican Against Europe from Edmond Paris, that website quotes, Edmond Paris did not understand that the Jesuit general, and this is the one most important point I want to make about von Kolvenbach, the Jesuit general, that's a former general, the Jesuit general is in complete control of the international intelligence community. That is the CIA, FBI, KGB, Mossad, BND, SIS, etc. Yeah, that's what E. Howard Hunt told you, huh? So, they are in control. Yeah, the Jesuits condemn freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of conscience. That's all the things that JFK had mentioned in his famous 1960 campaign speech. My. So don't think for just 1 minute that it was only Project Bluebird which set the path straight to control or to program Jackie Kennedy into a CIA assassin. That goes much more further than that. That was just a thing out in the open. It was not the CIA who started with that, and it was not the Germans also. Yeah, it was in the same hospital where JFK's autopsy allegedly took place. Yeah, but that's not the real origin. Yeah. You see, everything is connected, even Barbie and the secret door. Designed by Mr. and Mrs. Handler. Yeah, it's like Handler, interesting term. These are all programs. The best program is then people who are not getting aware of the fact that they are being programmed, and that is the same situation out now. Brett, there are billions of people at the moment who are absolutely unaware that they had been programmed by the television into believing a deadly thing out there happening. That's the best program. Yeah. So dolls are also a program. Yeah, and Alice in Wonderland is a program. And in 1961, the year of John F. Kennedy inauguration, Mattel introduced the Ken doll. It also created a JFK doll. So on the one hand, you have here Marilyn and Kennedy and Barbie and Ken. D. It's a Ken doll. Why they have named it Ken, huh? Must be a coincidence then. Man. Yeah, Barbie dolls were shown in the last scene of Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah, they are all mind controlled, the people, especially also women, with the consummation and sex and deception, luxury. Yeah, and you see that is the real cause, the spiritual exercises. And it did not only take place at the Jesuits in 1514 something. That's not correct. Yeah, these are not Christian meditations, by the way. Yeah, these are evil things. Yeah, these are contemplations. These are things that Jesus Christ warned us not to have repetitious prayers and all the things. Yeah, so these things, which Jesuit spiritual exercises, these are the forerunners of Operation Mockingbird, Operation this, Operation that, mind control, MK Ultra. Yeah, and that they have done that even before the Jesuits. You see that before the Jesuits, there were the Dominicans, Augustinians.
Yeah, this is spiritual control.
Yeah.
Is what.
Yeah. And when you then know, really, that the Jesuits control all the other stuff, like the Mafia, SMOM, Opus Dei, Club of Rome, Freemasons, New Age. Yeah, that's all the church, because the church is controlling everything. And the Jesuits have taken over the Roman Catholic Church. You see that at least with Pope Francis then. Yeah. So they are controlling both sides. Since Kennedy, you see that I have forgotten to insert here the picture with the Archbishop then Spellman having Kennedy and Nixon at the left and the right. Yeah, so they are.
Yeah, the Al Smith dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Knights of Malta control the money. Yeah. So the Knights of Malta everywhere. Everywhere. That is, of course, just a small excerpt. Yeah. 1,000 members, American section, 1,000 of them in the country. Yeah, so the Jesuits rule with their families and with their Black Pope and over centuries, and therefore you can't get rid of them. Washington, D.C.'s original name was Rome, Maryland. A branch of the Potomac River was called Tiber Creek, which was named after the Tiber River in Rome. Like Rome, Washington, D.C. has 7 hills whose names are Capitol Hill, Meridian Hill, Floral Hills, Forest Hills, Hillbrook, Hillcrest, and Knox Hill. So it's just a ripoff. They control everything. And when Kennedy says, we have to get rid of the CIA, splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces, then he got not only the SMOM as his enemies, but also the entire Roman Catholic Church. So where to start? It's all SMOM. It's just another branch. Yeah, it's happening in Germany, in America, everywhere, in Switzerland, in Italy. Yeah, and the problem is that the House of Kennedy also has been controlled by Jesuits, because they have a Fitzgerald Douay-Rheims Bible. Yeah, so E. Howard Hunt says the Jesuits have formed the greatest intelligence service in the world. Yeah, that's what now really comes into play. So they knew exactly that John F. Kennedy was against their policy. Yeah? So when the Jesuits have their extreme oath of induction, which every Jesuit at the fourth vow he must execute, in the word inri means justum neca regis impius. It is just to exterminate or annihilate impious or heretical kings, governments, or rulers, and that is exactly the one thing that happened in the assassination of Kennedy. Kennedy, then, when he was not accepting the Pope, he was a heretical king. And therefore, according to their doctrine, it is just to exterminate Kennedy or any other ruler, or Gaddafi, or who else. Yeah, the blessed Virgin Mary. Yeah, it does not speak about in the Bible that Virgin Mary was blessed. Yeah. And they say that they have can secretly or openly against all heretics, Protestant liberals, extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth. Hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, bury alive, etc. And I don't want to continue the reading of that. But that's in the official American Congress on microfilm. Yeah, so that is just not an hoax. Yeah, that has been used in a French court in the 19th century, as well as in the congressional records of the United States. Yeah, so for them it is just to exterminate people. Can you imagine that? And this is called regicide. Regicide means the murder of a king. That is coming from that book, The Jesuits, of Theodor Griesinger in German. Yeah, but it's forbidden in the Bible to swear, and in the Roman Catholic explanation of morals, when it comes on to oath, they claim the truth we proclaim under oath, is relative and not absolute. Yeah. So when it is forbidden in the Bible to swear, oh my, all these Pharisees and scribes, it's the same thing at the time of Jesus as today. And that is coming here from the book Vatican Assassins, and the author tries to prove here that it's the church behind. The problem is that he just makes claims and he can't prove the things. And you can't prove it because, of course, you won't find any orders, letters, or the like. But you can look at their symbolism and then you find the things. We can do that. I'm not sure if we can do that here on YouTube, but we can do that in the future, maybe. So that would also, these spiritual exercises and the Jesuit education of the House of Kennedys also would explain the behavior of his mother and his wife. His mother says, I was brought up a strict Catholic and I think that helped, praying the Hail Mary, and the best thing that she ever encountered was being the mother of the president. And then when her own son was being killed in the street of Dallas, she paced around and she put things in order and she said the rosary. Why? Yeah, well, she was a papal countess in 1950 from Pope Pius XII. Yeah, so she was a papal servant, so to speak. And if her own son has sinned because he had not bowed down to the Pope, where she thinks that the Pope is a representative of Jesus Christ, yeah, then I think that in her Catholic view, Brett, that he had sinned. Yeah, you see, she was a strict Catholic and she was a countess of the church. and suggesting that her own husband, Joe Kennedy, was a sovereign knight of Malta. What shall convince me not to think that she was a dame of Malta? Tja, because the entire family was obedient to the Pope, as you can see there in the Vatican in 1930s.
In submission, Michael. Yes.
Yeah. And then it was his own wife, Jackie Kennedy, who says he's such a poor Catholic. Jackie told columnist Arthur Crock, too rich and too sickly. Yeah. So that means that JFK was a naughty boy. He was just being a poor Catholic. He was not a correct Catholic either in the eyes of his mother nor in the eyes of his wife, because he did not obey. And his wife, Jackie Kennedy, was making a personal appearance in 1962 at the Vatican with the old friendly Pope John the 23rd and the Vatican. And then here officially she was blessed by Cardinal Cushing before Robert Kennedy's funeral, and she is the one who ordered to stop the life-supporting machines. What a world! What a world! What a world! Yeah, and here you see Kennedy sitting on the small chair, and here you see the Pope on the real big chair, yeah, telling him who's the real most powerful man in the world and not the American president. And he did not bow down. Once again, he's such a poor Catholic, Jackie told. Yeah? He was supposed to kneel down in front of the Pope. He did not do. And here in the back you see the general of the Jesuits. Yeah? So he was surrounded by enemies. He said, I will splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and smash him into the wind or so. Yeah, and that CIA is Syrian Military Knight of Malta. That is their possession. That was on the 2nd of July 1963. A mere 4.5 months before the assassination took place. Yeah, you see here the white Pope, and you hear when you would like to call them the black Pope. Yeah, and you see the difference here in appearance. That's JFK dressed as a schoolboy, and the Pope dressed with all his might and power and glory and what else. Yeah, JFK did not bow down, and he did not kiss the ring of Pope Paul. Huh? So that's a big difference. As a devout Catholic, Kennedy was expected to kneel before the Pope and kiss the papal ring on his right hand, but he did not do that. He did not do so. Yeah, but on the other hand, it's been reported these days that Joe Biden, who became the first Catholic since Kennedy to win the presidency, also did kneel in front of the Pope and kiss the papal ring. I have not found a picture of that, but it has been reported. So that is what is important here, is that it had been reported that Joe Biden is subservient and obedient to the Pope. Yeah. It's not important if he had kneeled. It is important that it has reported that he had kneeled. So it had reported that he will serve the Pope. Yeah, Brett. So that's the message.
Yep. Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Very good point, Michael.
That's verse 1 and 2 and 3. Could you please read that, Brett?
Yes. These things I have spoken unto you, that ye should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogue. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God service. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father nor me.
Yeah, that's it. So if you suppose if you kill American president who is against the Pope, and you see the Pope as the representative of Jesus Christ, and the Pope orders to get rid of that heretic king, then whom do you obey? Whom do you serve? A strict Catholic would serve the Pope, and if the Pope says, okay, I condemn that American president because he does not bow down, yeah, then it's quite an easy feat to get your common sense, that your common sense says, okay, then it's absolutely logical that somebody kills because God has ordered him to do so. And that's what the Vatican also said. The Vatican said one day after the assassination on Kennedy took place, he says in the Vatican News, the speech of the 23rd of November, one day after, yeah, they say that we pray to God, which God, that the sacrifice of John Kennedy. Yeah, so that is the remark here. We pray to God that the sacrifice of John Kennedy may be made to favor the cause he promoted and to help defend the freedom of people and peace of the world, blah, blah, blah. So it was a sacrifice of John Kennedy. That's what the Vatican openly tells you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, and in that picture here, that's the only picture where you really see the most powerful man in the world, and it's not Kennedy. It's Jean-Baptiste Janssens, that's the supreme general of the Jesuits here. With his long cape, which reminds me a bit of a legendary animal of the Bible bread.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the famous red dragon.
Yeah. Well, yeah, very closely related to that, aren't they?
Yeah, that's Jean-Baptiste Janssens, and that you see the really most powerful man in the world. So that is the best picture I could come up with. That's from the 2nd of July 1963. So they had more than 4 months to make all the preparations. Because Kennedy is not only a poor Catholic, Kennedy is a heretic. And therefore he can be exterminated. Look at the headlines of the newspapers. Los Angeles Times says, "Our martyred young president." Taps for a martyrer. Washington Post. Nation buries its martyred president. Martyred. Along the way to a martyrer's grave. Thousands pay homage to martyred president, the Dallas Morning News, Freemason newspaper. Yeah, so he was killed because of his belief. The end of the journey for martyrer. You think that are only coincidences? When your American president, George W. Bush, who played the part as a kind of childish president, but don't underestimate him. He says this crusade is going to take a while. Yeah, he's speaking about a crusade. He's speaking about a religious war. And this Colonel Hayes here in the Georgetown University says, oh yeah, these people, these real faithful people, be it Muslims, Christians, or what else, these are dangerous people. There's only one way, you have to eliminate them. Yeah, so that is the fourth vow of the Jesuits, to exterminate all the people, or eliminate people. And if your president, George W. Bush, says, oh, he's on a crusade, this crusade is going to take a while, then it's really interesting when he was also on an interview at EWTN here, and he has been asked if what he was seeing when he looked into the eyes of Pope Benedict XVI, and he said without any hesitation, he says, God. Yeah? So which God is he working for when he says this crusade is going to take a while? So he's submitting that he's working for the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
And because he says that Benedict XVI is God. For him is God. Yeah, so he's working for the Vatican. So it's very interesting when this Pope in 1963 was diagnosed with a terrible cancer that finally claimed his life in June 1963, and also Kennedy was killed in 1963. But there's much more to it. Yeah. You see, and 2 years later, the Pope went down to visit the United Nations. Yeah, the United Nations being the one world government of the Vatican. Yeah, and then Mrs. Kennedy was in very good mood, Brett.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah. And the Pope being in very good mood when he was visiting the so-called New World. Or Romerica. Yeah. Yeah. I see so much things going on at Kennedy, but it's all a religious thing. Yeah, so everything else is just pure distraction. When the German newspaper says that 2 people of the secret security guard have been killed in the assassination, that's BS. It's been rumors around that one agent was killed, whose job was it to guard the life of the president. A secret service agent and a Dallas policeman have been shot and killed. The Dallas policeman only can be J.D. Tippit, but it's not known if there was a service agent has been killed. Maybe that's also to educate all that secret service agents that it might something happen to them if they would raise their voice. Yeah, but the secret service agent everything was shot. That seems to be a fake news. Yeah. So who are the people behind? That's on the one hand all the people who are busy counseling and being together with Jacqueline Kennedy. On the first hint, it is Joseph Leonard, which is a Congregatio of the Missione, or the Lazarist, until 1964, an Irish Vincentian priest. These Lazarists were appointed to take the place of the Jesuits in the Levantine and Chinese missions. So when the Jesuits were suppressed by the order of Pope Clement, they were taking the place of the Jesuits. So they are all kind of a Jesuits, this Lazarus here. Yeah, but this man here was a counselor to Jacqueline Kennedy. There are much more people. He became friends with members of the family of Jackie Kennedy, means Bouvier, in the 1920s. He befriended Jacqueline Bouvier as she then was in 1950 when she visited Ireland with her stepbrother. Father Leonard and Mrs. Kennedy maintained a regular correspondence until his death. And in 1955, Frater Leonard invited Senator Kennedy to address the students, etc. Jackie asked Frater Leonard to baptize her son. He was unable to do so by ill health. And also the Father Oscar Huber, the priest who administered the last rites of the Catholic Church to President Kennedy, was also a member of the Vincentian order. Yeah. A number of letters from Jackie Kennedy to Frater Leonard, or Father Leonard, were put up for sale at an auction scheduled for 2014. However, the auction was cancelled by All Hallows in a statement which indicated the college were exploring ways with the Kennedy family of curating the letters. So they didn't want you to read these letters. Joseph Leonard. That's the name. So that when everything has been settled there, it's just all about the money or the 30 coins of silver for Mrs. Kennedy afterwards from Mrs. Christina Onassis. This is the official document here. And she was signing at as Jacqueline Bouvier Onassis only. So this Father Leonard, for example, he was being introduced to her stepfather Auchincloss. So you know that they already had some connections between the Jesuits. So whatever the secret is for Mrs. Kennedy, it's just not only in Paris, it's about the Jesuits' connections. The second one is Richard McSorley, a Jesuit priest and peace studies professor at the one-person facility in Georgetown University, and later he counseled Bill Clinton also. So Richard McSorley, he's the one actually who knew what happened behind the curtain, I think. He was a retired professor at Georgetown University. And he marched together with Martin Luther King. And when Senator Robert F. Kennedy lay dying in California after being shot in Los Angeles hotel after his victory, Father McSorley celebrated Mass in a family's home. Why? Well, I'll show you. Yeah. According to researcher, Jesuit Frater Richard McSorley was an accomplice in the order's JFK assassination and also a confessor of Jackie Kennedy. And head of a one-man Center of Peace Studies in Georgetown University. And now look here. He had close ties to the Kennedy family before his conversations with Jackie. McSorley's relationship with the Kennedy family, which began when he met Robert and Ethel Kennedy in 1961, soon after he began teaching at Georgetown. You have to get to know, Brad, that also the Kennedy family moved to Georgetown, and 1961 being the first year of the presidency of John F. Kennedy. And what did the Jesuits do, most likely? Well, they have smuggled in a Jesuit priest also to his younger brother Robert Kennedy in 1961. So, McSorley received a phone call from Ethel Kennedy's secretary asking if he would teach the Kennedy children tennis. Comes down from the Kennedy's Jesuit. So, under the guise of giving tennis lessons, essentially he would counsel Jackie. Yeah, under the guise. Yeah? So Jesuits in disguise. Very strange things here coming on. When Jacqueline asked, you don't have to believe it, do you think I will ever see my husband again? McSorley responded by noting the resurrection of the body, and Jacqueline Kennedy supposedly answered, oh, that's just one of those myths. It never really happened. Nobody ever really came back from the dead. And who's the poor Catholic now?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, 1961, the year of the presidency. And that was the thing that the Jesuits had set up for him. They wrote his speeches, they made all the preparation that he would become president, and he did not behave, he did not obey the Pope. I'm not the Catholic candidate for president. Yeah, and Bobby knew that Father McSorley, who had been to his house so many times, could be trusted. The family secrets would be safe with him, especially little-known cracks in the former First Lady's shattered psyche. Or maybe it was known to him which buttons he had to press that Mrs. Kennedy would obey, huh? My. Coming for the last 5 minutes here, it's coming from an excerpt from A Coup Made America with the CIA spy E. Howard Hunt. He says once again, I wouldn't presume to trace the lines of authority within the Catholic Church, how they get the information, but they do. We've always said, in an admiring way, that the Jesuits have formed the greatest intelligence service in the world. Always have. For centuries. Greatest intelligence service, so greater than the CIA. So, what did JFK in 1961 discover? He says the ruthless, monolithic, and ruthless conspiracy, and that can only mean the church, which he wanted to splinter. He wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind. So that means that he wants to get on the church influence on American politics. He was not a Tridentine. He was a liberal American Catholic, and that's what killed him in the end. So, last part, very surprisingly, coming from Jesse Ventura. You know that he's controlled opposition, but I got aware or got track of him when he was presenting a very interesting book. Let's look it up. You know that he was an actor, he was a politician, and he was everything for anybody. But, and now comes a big but, I have seen an interview with him, which is very interesting, and that interview is called We Killed John F. Kennedy. And he says, and that's in that book which I will present you, Kennedy and Khrushchev, they had back-channel communication that their governments were not aware of, and both of them had agreed, they were going to end the Cold War by 1965. Imagine the consequences. So they gotten rid of Kennedy, and they were doing it through Pope John. He died of cancer, and Khrushchev was also coup d'etat happening in Russia. Khrushchev was taken out of office in 1964, yeah, because there were people that wanted the Cold War, and what did we substantially get? 20 more years of Cold War. If you then compare his speech together with the quote of E. Howard Hunt, that the Jesuits formed the greatest intelligence service of the world, they of course knew that the communication of Khrushchev and Kennedy. And can you think about that famous line of Killer Queen, Khrushchev and Kennedy? So that kind of a guy, author, Catholic worker James W. Douglas wrote that book, Why He Died, JFK, and Why It Matters. And that's why he said that it had been made known in the Vatican. That's also what Jesse Ventura tells you. In the Vatican, it was discovered that Khrushchev and Kennedy were having conversations without the official way of politics. Yeah. And so, therefore, President Kennedy was the target of CIA covert operations. Yeah, of course, they wanted to get rid of Kennedy. And so he wanted to get rid of the CIA. So it was Kennedy against the Roman Catholic hierarchy of Secret Service organizations. Yeah, and so therefore he tried to withdraw from Vietnam in Action NSM 263, and he wanted to get out of Vietnam totally. And in that book here, which was discovered in the Vatican, he says, that author says, I was living in Rome studying theology and lobbying Catholic bishops in the Second Vatican Council. And then he got aware that the Vatican knew that they were having close communications, yeah, between them. Yeah, of course. You know that J. Edgar Hoover had these electronic surveillance put on them, yeah, so they knew everything. And Kennedy was very naive to think he could do something without the Secret Service knowing. Yeah? So in that book, The Unspeakable, it's been said that there are connections between the assassinations of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy and JFK. And we all know that the Vatican Vietnam War, or Vietnam, why did we go, von Avo Manhattan, it was just about a religious war. And then on page 126, Kennedy told Mansfield, I can't put out all the people out of Vietnam in 1965 after I'm re-elected. Yeah, that says here on page 126. Yeah. In 1965, I become one of the most unpopular presidents in history. I'll be damned everywhere as a communist, a peacer, but I don't care. If I try to pull out completely now from Vietnam, we would have another Joe McCarthy Red Scare on our hands, but I can't do it after I'm re-elected. So we had better make damn sure that I am re-elected. And so therefore he had to go to Dallas to get his votes. In preparation for a complete military withdrawal from Vietnam in 1965, the president wanted to initiate the decision-making process in 1963. Yeah, that's what it's all about. You see, when the Vatican wants to have the war against the Buddhists, against the monks in Vietnam, Kennedy was against the war that the Vatican wanted to have. Yeah, so that was another big item that they want to get rid of Kennedy. The end of all here at the moment. Yeah. So the Jesuits have formed the greatest intelligence service. Therefore, they knew that JFK was not obeying the Pope. JFK was against the war that the Vatican wanted to have in Vietnam. So they put on everybody who was in a Jesuitical mind, including his wife, and says they have to get rid of, to exterminate heretical kings like Kennedy. So far, that's my research, and looking forward to the next more, I think, relaxing sessions on looking behind the curtain, how to prove who's behind it, and all the distraction around it. And thank you very much for having me, and handing it over to my beloved brother Brett. Maranatha.
Thank you, Michael. Looking forward to continuing in this series And really am pleased to see that we've come this far and that we have drawn the conclusions pretty much around the death of Kennedy. Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise, I suppose, if you're indoctrinated in the system and are led to believe in the strict rules of the Catholic Church. You're not going to allow yourself to have that kind of conscience to put yourself in the position to think that the Pope could do any harm. But yeah, when you know the Bible, on the other hand, and you've studied the scriptures, you know that the Vatican is playing their part and that they have set their path clear, and they don't mince with words. They're very straightforward, and they make admissions all the time. And it's very clear where they're headed and where they're going. And they serve a different God, Michael. They serve a different purpose. And it's very easy for them to make things work out, because that's the way that these things are going. It's a conflict between God and Satan. And I got to end it, and we'll see you next time. God bless. Maranatha.